Imagine going into a room full of people you don't know. They all have their own stories, fears, and wants. As you look around, it's easy to feel like you don't know who to trust or how to connect with other people. Now, picture being able to figure out what they're thinking and feeling without them saying a word. Welcome to Silent Signals. Know what people really mean, a book where this amazing skill of reading people is not just a dream, but a real, doable thing that you can do. In a world where getting along with others is important for both personal and business success, being able to quickly and correctly read people can make you stand out. Have you ever wished you could instantly know how someone really feels, what drives them, or even if you can trust them? Learning how to read people is a life-changing skill that can give you a lot of useful information, whether you're in a high-stakes business discussion, trying to improve your personal relationships, or just want to know more about the people around you. But what does it mean to read people? There's more to it than just noticing body language and facial emotions. It's also about figuring out what a person's actions, behaviors, and small details mean that tell you more about how they're feeling inside. You can better understand their thoughts and feelings by learning to read these signs. This will help you react more effectively and with more empathy. The goal of this book is to take the mystery out of reading people so that anyone can do it. We'll talk about strategies and techniques that you can use right away to figure out what people are trying to say without them saying it. Every little thing about someone, like how they look or stand, can give you a sign about how they really feel and what they want to do. By practicing these skills, you'll not only become more aware, but you'll also improve your ability to get along with others and make choices. Read People is set up to take you step by step through this journey. We'll start by talking about the basics of human behavior and body language. Then we'll look at the science behind why people act the way they do. As you go along, you'll learn how to spot and understand certain signs that show important things about a person's behavior, like how confident, honest, or anxious they are. Each chapter will give you useful information and activities to improve your ability to observe and understand things more deeply. There are case studies and real-life examples throughout the book that show how these methods can be used in different settings. The ideas and tools in this article will help you handle difficult coworkers, make friends with new people, or just improve your emotional intelligence. They will also help you deal with social situations more easily and with more understanding. Reading people isn't just about becoming an expert on how people act. It's also about improving your relationships and making your personal and work life better. If you learn these skills, you'll be better able to make links that matter, make smart choices, and finally understand how the complex dance of human feelings changes our world. Are you ready to learn more about the people around you and reveal the secrets of how people behave? Turn the page and let Silent Signals, know what people really mean, help you see past the obvious and find out how people really connect with each other. Now is the start of your exciting journey into the world of the hidden signals. Isn't it interesting how much the silence can say? You can learn to read body language, facial expressions, and small changes in attitude that say more than words ever could. All you need is a sharp eye and some help. Imagine being in a room with other people and being able to read their bodies and understand what they are trying to say without them saying a word. You will be able to study people instantly after reading this amazing guide. It will help you see through the layers of human interaction. Chapter 1. How body language works. 55% of conversation is done through body language, which is why it's so important to be able to read people. You might not be aware of it, but every time you talk to someone, you're watching their body language, gestures, and stance as well. These body language signals can show how someone really feels, what they're thinking, or what they want to do. This is the first step, stance. An open, straight posture can show that you are confident and willing to talk to anyone, while a slouched, closed posture could show that you are not interested or feel safe. If someone leans towards you, it means they're probably interested and involved. On the other hand, if someone leans away, it could mean they're uncomfortable or want to get some space. Now think about motions. These can be very different from one culture to the next, but in general, big flowing motions can show interest and excitement, while small, tight movements can show fear or defense. Pay close attention to the hands of someone. Are they loose or clenched? People who clench their fists often look angry or tense, while people whose hands are free may look calm and at ease. Finally, we touch each other. This is largely based on cultural norms and personal limits, but it can tell you a lot about how comfortable someone is with you and how they feel about their relationship with you. For example, a pat on the back can show support or friendship while not touching. Someone could mean you don't feel comfortable with them. Chapter 2. Figuring out what expressions mean. In addition to body language, studying face movements can tell you a lot about how someone is feeling and what they want to say. People's faces show a lot of different feelings, and they can often be more honest than what they say. People often use small changes in their faces to show how they really feel, even when they're trying to hide it. Start with the mouth and eyebrows, which are the most noticeable parts. When you smile, your mouth moves along with your eyes, making the corners of your eyes wrinkle. A forced smile, on the other hand, is more likely to be narrow in the mouth. Eyebrows that are furrowed can show focus or confusion, while eyebrows that are raised can show surprise or doubt. Also, the lips and eyebrows are very important for making facial emotions. Cheek flushing can mean that someone is embarrassed or excited. When someone is stressed or worried, tension in the forehead, especially vertical lines between the eyebrows, is often a sign. Let's look at the nose now. A nose that is twisted can show disgust or dislike, while nostrils that flare out can show fear or anger. Finally, don't forget to look at your chin and mouth. A chin that sticks out can show resistance or determination, while a locked mouth can show anger or nervousness that is being held in. Chapter 3. Figuring out eye movements. Though facial movements can tell you a lot, the eyes, which are often called the windows to the soul, can really tell you a lot about how someone is feeling and thinking. Watching someone's eye movements can help you understand them better than just hearing what they say. In this light, let us look into eye movements and what they can show us in more depth. First, think about where someone is looking. If they avoid eye contact all the time, it could mean they don't trust you or are uncomfortable with you. On the other hand, making long eye contact could mean that you are interested or want to be bold. It's important to remember that eye contact rules are very different from one culture to the next. Next, pay attention to how the pupils get bigger. When we feel excited, attracted, or emotionally aroused, our eyes naturally get bigger. If someone's pupils get bigger while they're talking to you, it could mean they're really interested in what you're saying or even interested in you. Lastly, the number of times you blink can also tell you something. Blinking more often can be a sign of stress or pain, while blinking less often usually means you are concentrating or focusing. However, don't forget to think about how things in your surroundings, like light and air quality, can also change how fast you blink. Chapter 4. Figuring out what hand signs mean. Our hands can say a lot more than words can, just like our eyes can. They're an important part of talking to each other because they let you know what someone is thinking, feeling, and planning. Open hands make you seem honest and open. People often want to show trust and acceptance when they open their hands. It's a peace sign for everyone, and it means they're not holding back anything. Closed hands, on the other hand, can mean that someone is angry or defensive. Hands that are clenched often show stress, anger, or frustration. If you see someone's hands clenching into fists, it means they're upset or scared. Moving around a lot is another sign. People who are stressed or worried tend to move their hands around a lot, touching their faces or pulling their hair. But don't jump to conclusions too fast. Some people move as a habit, so it's important to look at this along with other gestures and body language. Handshakes can also tell you a lot about someone. A strong handshake usually shows that you are sure of yourself and honest. On the other hand, a weak handshake could mean that you don't trust yourself or don't care. Keep in mind that reading hand signals isn't an exact science. People are complicated, and differences in culture can make actions mean very different things. It's important to look at the bigger picture, which includes what the person says and how they move. Chapter 5. Looking at posture and stance. Have you ever thought about how much someone's stance can tell you about them? What you can learn about someone just by looking at how they stand or sit will amaze you. Let's break it down, shall we? First, pay attention to the main point of view. Does the person have their shoulders back and their head held high? That's often a sign of being sure of yourself and having confidence. If they're slouching or hunched over, on the other hand, it could mean they're feeling insecure or uncomfortable. Next, look at their legs. Are they far apart or are they close together? A wide stance usually means you are in charge or ready to act, while legs close together can mean you are nervous or on guard. Then watch where their arms are placed. Crossing your arms over your chest is often seen as a defense or closed-off posture. If someone's arms are hanging loosely at their sides or sitting freely in their lap, it means they're probably at ease and ready to talk. Last, look at their neck and head. A tilted head can mean that someone is interested or curious, while a stiff, straight neck could mean that they are tense or on guard. Chapter 6. Patterns of behavior to keep an eye on. Now that we know more about posture and stance, we can move on to behavioral patterns to learn more about body language. These are acts or habits that someone does over and over again that can reveal a lot about their personality and way of thinking. They don't happen as quickly or briefly as body language, but they show just as much. Think about how someone treats other people, especially those they think are less important than them. If they talk badly about or insult them all the time, it's a clear sign of a superiority complex and maybe an underlying nervousness. Watch how they handle stress. A lot of people shut down, some break out, and some get very busy. This can tell you a lot about how they deal with things and how emotionally mature they are. Look at how consistent they are. What do they say and what do they do? Actions speak louder than words, and being inconsistent can show that someone is lying or confused. Pay close attention to how responsible they are. Are they responsible for their actions, or do they always blame other people? This can show how emotionally intelligent and self-aware they are. Pay attention to how they deal with power and control. Are they willing to work together or bossy? Their way of leading and how they see other people show in this. Finally, look at how they deal with time. Are they always on time, always late, or always early? It can show how much they value others, how well they can organize things, and how they feel about keeping promises. Chapter 7. Why Micro-Expressions Are Important. As you learn more about how people behave, you'll find that micro-expressions are a very useful tool. When someone is feeling very emotional, they make these short, uncontrollable facial movements. They happen very quickly, often in a fraction of a second, which makes it hard to spot without careful observation. Even when someone is trying to hide their feelings, their tiny facial movements can tell you a lot about how they really feel. Folks often aren't even aware of these signs, so they can give a more accurate picture of how they're feeling than what they say. Being able to notice and correctly understand these quick cues will help you better understand the person you're talking to. There are 7 micro-expressions that everyone can use: happiness, sadness, fear, surprise, anger, disgust, and contempt. They happen to everyone in the same way, no matter what society or family they are from, but the reasons behind them can be very different. As well as the person's unique traits and circumstances, you should think about the situation in which the phrase appears. But micro-expression research doesn't always work. You might get these signs wrong or think too much about them. Remember that they're only one part of the complicated puzzle that is how people act. But when used with other tools for observation, they can add a strong layer of understanding. It takes practice, patience, and a sharp eye to get good at reading small facial gestures. This skill can greatly improve your capacity to read and comprehend people, giving you a fuller understanding of the emotional terrain of people. Chapter 8. Figuring out what people say. Understanding someone's secret feelings through their small facial movements is helpful, but paying attention to what they say is just as important if you want to read them well. Knowing how someone speaks by listening to their words, tone, and speed can tell you a lot about how they feel and what they are thinking. First, pay attention to the words used. A person's language can show what they know, what they believe, and even their social class. For example, people often use words that make sense to them. If someone talks a lot about being honest, it's probably a very important value for them. Next, pay attention to the speech tone. It often says more than the words themselves. Someone's voice can show that they are worried, excited, angry, or happy. If they're talking quickly, it could mean that they're tense or excited. A flat voice could mean that someone is bored or not interested. In the same way, pace says a lot. People who talk quickly might be worried or excited, while people who talk slowly might be thinking or trying to be careful with their words. Last, pay attention to the breaks. Someone who is quiet for a long time might be thinking or feeling nervous. A lot of short breaks could mean they don't know what to say or are making it up as they go along. Chapter 9. Finding Signs of Deception. It can be hard to find your way through the maze of dishonest people. You'll be better at navigating these complicated paths, though, if you know how to spot signs of lying. It's about paying attention to the small changes in behavior that the unconscious mind sends that often say more than words. To begin, you should know that lies often lead to worry and mental strain. This stress shows up in the body a lot of the time in the form of micro-expressions, which are quick, uncontrollable face movements that last only a fraction of a second. When someone is lying, a sudden spark of fear, anger, or disgust can be a sign. Next, watch how you move. A lot of people think that avoiding eye contact is a sure sign that someone is lying. In fact, behavior that changes over time is a more accurate sign. People who lie often try to make up for it by making too much eye contact or moving around a lot. If someone is moving, touching their face or nose, or hiding their mouth, this could be a sign that they are lying. Also, pay attention to how people talk. People who lie might trip over words, stop longer, or say things over and over. They could give too many details to try to make their story seem more real, or they could be too general and not give any specifics at all. Chapter 10. How body language can be different based on culture. It's more of an art than a science to understand body language, and it gets even more complicated when you take into account differences between cultures. When it comes to nonverbal communication, there are a lot of cultural factors that can change the meanings of certain poses or movements that people use. For example, think about the idea of personal space. In North America, it's polite to keep your space during a talk. In many Middle Eastern and Latin American countries, on the other hand, being close is a sign of friendship and trust. This familiarity is just a culture standard, so don't think of it as an invasion. Eye contact is also very different. People in the West often see it as a sign of trustworthiness and honesty. In some Asian societies, though, making too much direct eye contact is seen as rude or even hostile. It's all about figuring out what these social cues mean and changing how you read them. Gestures with the hands are also dangerous. In your country, a thumbs up might mean yes, but in some Middle Eastern countries, it's rude. In France, the OK sign, which is a circle made by the thumb and index finger, means 0. In Brazil, it's rude. It's important to look at body language through the lens of cultural sensitivity in today's international world. It's not enough to just note an action or motion. You need to know where it comes from culturally as well. This knowledge will not only help you read people better, but it will also help you get along better with people from other cultures. Chapter 11. Differences in how men and women communicate. A lot of the time, gender has a big effect on how people talk to each other. Men and women talk in different ways, and being aware of these differences can help you better understand other people. Men tend to talk more directly and focus on getting things done. When they talk to each other, it's usually to get something done, so they keep it simple and to the point. The attention will be on facts, details, and answers. Men usually like to talk about things like hobbies, activities, or topics rather than their own thoughts or experiences. Women, on the other hand, tend to talk in a more personal way. They talk a lot to get to know each other and build connections. You'll notice that they talk a lot about their thoughts, emotions, and personal situations. Women also tend to use body language and facial emotions more than men do to get their point across, which shows that they pay even more attention to emotional context. But keep in mind that these are just general trends and not hard and fast rules. Each person has a unique way of communicating that depends on their personality, culture, and how they were raised. So, gender might give you some ideas about how someone talks, but it shouldn't be the only thing you use to judge them. To get a full picture of someone's conversation style, it's important to look at other things and watch them in different situations. Chapter 12. Seeing emotional intelligence in action. Emotional intelligence is without a question a very important part of watching and understanding other people. It's the quiet, unseen weapon you can use to read people's body language, feelings, and thoughts that they aren't saying out loud. You are watching with more than just your eyes. Your heart and mind are also involved. To use your emotional intelligence, you need to pay close attention to how other people feel. Pay attention to the subtleties in their faces and the words they use. A wrinkled face could mean that someone is concentrating or is angry, and a quick, brief smile could mean that someone is laughing or is feeling bad. To correctly guess how people are feeling, you need to be able to spot these small changes. After that, you need to understand how they feel by putting yourself in their shoes. It's not about guessing or making assumptions. It's about seeing things from their point of view. It's not enough to feel sad for someone. You have to understand their feelings as if they were your own. But keep in mind that emotional intelligence isn't just about knowing how other people feel. It's also about understanding your own. Don't draw conclusions too quickly based on your own feelings and opinions. Keep a clear, objective point of view instead. You will be able to make more accurate observations and decisions about other people after this. It takes time to improve your emotional intelligence. Reading people, getting to know their thoughts and feelings, and connecting with them on a deeper level will get easier with time and practice. Chapter 13. Listening to the tone and pitch of voice. As you try to read people better, let's look at another important factor: the tone and pitch of their voice. This important tool often says more than what is being said. Although it's complicated, if you listen carefully, you can start to figure out the hints that are hidden in it. When you listen to someone and analyze their voice tone, you hear how they talk. Is their voice friendly and warm, or cold and far away? These changes in tone can help you figure out how someone is feeling. A happy or excited tone, for example, can be communicated through a voice, while a flat, dull voice can be used to show boredom or lack of interest. Let's talk about pitch now. It has to do with how high or low someone's voice is. A high pitch can mean energy, worry, or even grief, while a low pitch could mean power, calmness, or seriousness. It's important to know that pitch can be very different for different people depending on their gender, age, and cultural background. Don't forget that how people say things is just as important as what they say. The pitch and tone of someone's voice can show how they feel and what they think. But be careful not to draw conclusions from just one thing. Tone and pitch of the voice are only one part of the puzzle. Chapter 14 is about proximity and personal space. When you're trying to figure out someone's behavior and mood by listening to their tone and pitch, don't forget how important proxemics and personal space are. Proxemics is the study of how people use space and how population density affects behavior, communication, and social contact. It is a key tool for looking at how comfortable people are and how they relate to others. Let's look into this some more. Pay attention to how close someone stands to you or other people while you're talking. Someone standing far away might be letting you know they are uncomfortable or not interested. Someone who breaks into your personal bubble, on the other hand, might be too sure of themselves, too powerful, or just not aware of social rules. It's not just about getting away, though. Take note of how the body is positioned. If someone is leaning away from you, they may be telling you they want to leave, or that they are not interested. If they're facing you, though, it's likely that they're paying attention. Watch for possessive traits as well. People often claim space with things like putting their own things on a table. There may be a need for power or dominance here. Personal space is more than just a place to live. It's also a way of thinking. People who close off or protect their personal space a lot might have trouble trusting others or feel threatened. Chapter 15. Looking at clothing options. The clothes someone wears, which are a colorful way to show themselves, can tell you a lot about their personality, status, and mood. If you pay attention, you can pick up on little things that they're telling you, like their owners whispering. First, look at the colors. People who wear a lot of bright colors might be friendly, outspoken, and open to new things. People who wear muted or dark colors, on the other hand, might be shy, traditional, or just don't want to stand out. Next, look at the style. Wearing trendy clothes could mean that someone cares about fitting in, or it could mean that they are creative. On the other hand, someone who chooses classic or timeless pieces might be more traditional, putting more value on quality and durability over the latest fashions. Also think about the size. Clothes that are custom-made or fit perfectly often show that you pay attention to details, are skilled, or have high standards for yourself. If someone's clothes are too big or too loose, it could mean that they want to hide their body, or that comfort is important to them. Lastly, pay attention to how clean and well kept it is. Clean, well-kept clothes can show that you care about how you look and are careful about it, while dirty or worn-out clothes can show that you are careless or don't care about social rules. Chapter 16. Telling the difference between dominant and submissive behaviors. You may not be aware that every exchange is a subtle game of power, and there are signs that show whether someone is being dominating or submissive. It's all in the details, the little things that you might miss at first glance. Learning how to read these signs, on the other hand, can make it a lot easier to understand other people. Body language is often a sign of dominant behavior. People who are powerful take up more room. They stand with their feet wide apart. They'll probably stand or sit with their back straight, their shoulders back, and their heads up. They look each other in the eyes and move slowly and with confidence. They're not afraid to say what they think, and they usually do so in a loud and clear way. Being humble, on the other hand, means trying to shrink down and take up less room. People who are submissive often stand with their shoulders hunched and their heads down. Their voice may be quieter, and they may speak more slowly. They might avoid making long-term eye contact, and their moves might be shaky or jerky. But it's important to remember that these actions aren't set in stone. They can change depending on the person or the setting. Also, being dominant or submissive doesn't necessarily mean you are better or worse. It's just a change in behavior that you can now see and understand better. Chapter 17. Figuring out how to spot nervous habits. A big part of reading people is figuring out their worried habits, along with noticing when they act dominating or timid. These repeated, often unaware behaviors can tell you a lot about how someone is feeling. First, look at the hands of the person. Are they moving around, tapping, or messing with their hair or clothes? This could mean that you are uncomfortable, anxious, or nervous. In the same way, locked teeth or hands could mean that you are trying to hide anger or stress. Next, look at the emotions on their faces. If someone blinks quickly or avoids eye contact, it could mean they are nervous or lying. When someone is stressed, they tend to touch their faces more. So look for scratching, rubbing, or biting their lips a lot. Not only that, but also pay attention to how they stand. Crossed arms or legs or hunched shoulders can show that you are guarded or worried. A stance that is too stiff or still, on the other hand, could mean that they are trying to hide or control their nerves. Finally, pay attention to how they talk. Speech that is fast, jumbled, or stuttered can be a sign of stress. Long silences, on the other hand, could mean that they are trying to think of an answer or keep their thoughts in check. Remember that these signs aren't proof for sure that you're worried. They're just hints. To figure out what these cues mean, you need to know what's going on and compare the person's behavior to what they usually do. It's not a science to fully understand other people. It's an art that you can develop by observing them carefully and practicing. We'll talk about matching and building trust in the next section, which is another important part of learning how to read people well. Chapter 18. Reflecting and Getting to Know Each Other. Mirroring is one of the most important skills for communicating with other people. As part of this method, you quietly copy someone else's actions, such as their movements, body language, speech patterns, or attitudes. People often use this method to get to know each other better, feel more connected, and understand each other better. Do not mistake mirroring for making fun of someone. You have to be aware, caring, and quick to react to master this fine art. You're not repeating everything that is said, but rather the conversation's mood, pace, and tone. The power of mimicking comes in its ability to help others feel understood, accepted, and at ease. When you mimic someone, you show that you understand them, which can help you connect with them more deeply and talk to them better. Still, it's important to keep in mind that bad matching can cause discomfort and distrust. If you do too much, it could make you look fake or cunning. So, it's important to find the right balance, mirroring just enough to show understanding and sensitivity, but not so much that it stands out or seems awkward. On the other hand, rapport building means getting to know someone and making a bond with them. Finding shared ground, genuinely interested and empathetic, is what it's all about. When paired with good reflection, it makes a strong tool for getting to know and affecting other people. Chapter 19. A Group of Signals That Aren't Speech. As we learn more about how people talk to each other, we come across groups of nonverbal cues. When put together, these groups of facial expressions, movements, and gestures can better show how someone is feeling, what they're thinking, or what they want to say than any single nonverbal signal could. Imagine that someone leans back in their chair, crosses their arms, and doesn't look at you when you're talking. Each of these actions could mean different things by itself, but when you see them all together, you can tell that the person is probably not interested or is being guarded. Clusters are very powerful in this way because they give background. They are very important for understanding nonverbal speech. Nonverbal cues group together to send clear messages, just like words form phrases to describe full thoughts. It's not about focusing on a single action, but seeing patterns and thinking about how they fit into the scenario and how the person usually acts. These groups are important to pay attention to if you want to read people well. Look for patterns in things like tone of voice, body language, and facial reactions. Keep an eye on how consistent these signs are. If someone's words and their body language don't match up, trust their body language more because it often shows what's really going on. Chapter 20. Figuring out how confident you are. How can you tell how confident someone is just by looking at them? The answer is in the small clues they send without meaning to. Pay close attention to how they stand. When someone is sure of themselves, they stand tall with their chest out and shoulders back. They take up room without thinking twice. If they're sitting, they might lean back, making it look like they're at ease with who they are. This isn't about being cocky. It's a silent statement of confidence. Pay attention to their eye contact. People who are sure of themselves don't mind looking other people in the eye when they talk. It shows that you are honest, open, and reliable. But don't think that constant, unblinking eye contact means you are sure of yourself. That could be a sign of aggressiveness or control. People who are sure of themselves usually have a good balance. They look someone in the eye, but they're not afraid to break it every once in a while. Pay attention to their words. Sure of themselves, people speak clearly. Their sounds don't rock back and forth. They're steady. They speak at a good speed, not too fast or too slow. They clearly say what they mean, even though they're not very loud. They talk with passion. Think about what they're doing. People who are sure of themselves use their hands to emphasize points, but they don't move in a shaky or worried way. When someone is talking, they feel free to touch their face or body, which shows that they are comfortable with themselves. Chapter 21. Whispered Signs of Pain. It may only take a few key signs to figure out when someone is uncomfortable. Pay attention to how they move. Are they moving around? This can be a clear sign that you are uncomfortable. It's not just big, obvious moves that can be a sign of unease. A small change in weight, tapping of the foot, or playing with a pen over and over again are all examples. Watch what they're doing with their faces. Do you see quick frowns, tightened jaws, or brow furrows? When someone is feeling bad, these emotions often show up on their face. These little facial movements often show how someone really feels. Their voice can also give you important clues. Someone may be unhappy if their voice is shaking, strained, or if they're talking faster than normal. In the same way, clearing your throat or eating a lot can be a sign of being nervous. Next, think about their personal space. When someone is unhappy, they will probably put some space between themselves and what is making them uncomfortable. Do they have their backs to you or someone else? Are they making a wall by crossing their arms or legs? Finally, pay attention to how involved they are in the talk. People may not be comfortable if they look away a lot, answer quickly, or don't fully engage in the talk. Chapter 22. Signs of Attendance and Disinterest. To understand how people react during encounters, it's important to be able to spot signs of interest and boredom. It's not just what they say, but also how they say it. If you watch their body language, face emotions, and voice tone, you can learn a lot about how they really feel. People who are interested tend to lean in, make eye contact, and move their bodies in an open way. They may also answer with enthusiasm, ask follow-up questions, or give you a praise. They might speak faster, and their voice might get higher. If someone is not interested, on the other hand, they will likely act in the opposite way. They may lean back, turn their heads away, or cross their arms. They might answer in a few short words, or they might not answer at all. The pitch of their speech may drop, and they may talk more slowly. It's important to remember, though, that these signs don't mean for sure. For example, someone might keep eye contact not because they're interested, but to show that they are in charge. They might also cross their arms, not because they're not interested, but because it's cold. That's why it's important to think about the situation and look for groups of clues instead of depending on a single one. Chapter 23. How to Use Body Language in Groups. It's interesting to look at body language of a single person, but things are different when you're with a group. The body language of the whole group tells a story of its own. At that point, you should pay attention to how the group is feeling and how the members are talking to each other. Keep track of the people who move their bodies when they talk. Even if someone is talking to the whole group, their body could be turned toward one person in particular. This can often show who they think is in charge of the group or who makes them feel the most at ease. Look at how the people in the group are standing. Are they squished together or spread out? A close-knit group can mean friendship and unity, while a spread-out group could mean that people don't get along or that there are problems in the group. Also, look for balance in the way they move their bodies. If people in a group copy each other's postures and movements, it means they understand and agree with each other. This is a sign of peace and confidence. But if one person's body language is very different from the others, it could mean that they don't agree or are uncomfortable. Even if they don't say it out loud, their body language will show how they really feel. Last, pay attention to how the other people in the group react when someone talks or does something. Does the group pay attention or do they follow their lead? This can show who has power and who is just on the edge. Chapter 24, Changing the Way You Talk to People. Understanding the subtleties of different communication styles is an important skill to have as you deal with other people. Not only what you say, but also how you say it. The tone, the speed, and the words you use are all important for getting your point across. Being able to change your method based on the person you're talking to can make your conversation a lot more effective. To improve your social skills, you need to understand the different ways people talk to each other. There are 4 main types of styles: forceful, quiet, aggressive, and passive-aggressive. Being bold means being clear about what you need and want while still valuing others. Passive speakers, on the other hand, don't say what they mean, which can lead to confusion. People who communicate aggressively are honest, but they don't care about others, which can cause problems. Lastly, people who are passive-aggressive communicate in a way that seems aggressive, which creates stress and confusion. Finding these styles isn't just putting labels on other people. It's also about knowing their points of view, guessing how they'll react, and changing how you talk to them based on that. For example, if someone talks to you aggressively, you may need to stand up for yourself and set limits. You might need to ask an inactive speaker to say what they want to say. When it comes to communicating well, it's not enough to just figure out other people's ways. You also need to be able to change your own to fit their needs. It's about making to understand, which is a skill that needs close attention, deep thought, and the ability to change. To find the secret trends in how people talk, you have to go beyond the top level of talks and dig deeper. Pay attention to the words they use, the way they speak, how they move, and even when they don't say anything. Each of these things gives you a clue about how they like to connect. However, watching isn't enough on its own. You need to look at these cues, figure out how they like to communicate, and then change the way you talk to them to match. If they're short and to the point, be short and to the point too. If they pay more attention to details, show that you agree with them. It's all about going along with their plans. To master the art of fluid communication, you need to know your own way well and be able to change it to fit the needs of others. Just because you try one method and think it will work for everyone doesn't mean it will. Think about this. The person you're talking to isn't a straight speaker, but you are. They might like a style that is more vague and subtle. If you keep going at the same speed, they'll probably feel stressed, and conversation will break down. Don't give up, though. This isn't the end. It's a call to change. You need to change colors like a chameleon to fit in with your surroundings. First, pay attention to how the other person talks. Do they go straight or around? Do they value showing how they feel, or are they more quiet? Once you know what style they have, try to change yours to match or go with it. Chapter 25, Getting Better at Observing Things. You are now ready to get better at observing. Active observation methods are a good place to start because they help you connect with your surroundings and the people in them more deeply. You should also work on improving your awareness skills because they help you understand other people's feelings and actions in a more complex way. Improving your ability to observe people is an important part of getting to know them better, even if it seems hard at first. Active observation is more than just watching something. It means using all of your senses and noticing small things that other people might miss. First, pay attention to your body language. Watch how someone moves, stands, and makes facial movements. Does what they say match what they do? There may be feelings or goals that are hidden behind inconsistencies. Next, pay attention to the way they speak. Pay attention to the speed, volume, and tone. Voice changes can often tell you a lot about a person's mood and attitude. And don't forget how powerful it is to observe when you're alone. Pay attention to what people don't say. The stops, eye contact, or lack of it often tell the most moving stories. Finally, don't forget to practice. You will get better at these methods the more you use them on purpose. It's about training your mind to look deeper than the obvious and understand how people really act. Over time, you'll be able to read people with ease that you never thought possible. Getting better at observing is like getting better at tuning an instrument. It takes a lot of experience and a deep understanding of the subtleties. Like a monitor taking in data, the art of vision is about gathering, organizing, and making sense of information. It's not just what you see, but also how you understand it. Paying attention to the little things will help you get better. Pay attention to small things like tone of voice, facial movements, and body language. They can tell you a lot about how someone really feels. You get better with practice. Start by making simple notes about things like how someone moves or interacts with their environment. Over time, you'll begin to see trends and actions that you hadn't seen before. Remember that how people see things can go both ways. It's not enough to just watch other people. You also need to know how they see you. This knowledge can help you change the way you talk and connect with others so that you have better exchanges. It's all about being a smart watcher in the end, right? You've learned to read body language, facial movements, and spoken cues to figure out what people are trying to say without them saying it. These skills will help you find your way through life's social dance, leading you to understanding and kindness. Don't forget that it's not about manipulating, but about getting to know each other better. Don't give up. Soon, you'll be able to find the silent signals and read people like a book.